Alright YouTube, so in today's video I want to talk about which perks you should be taking in Fallout 76. As of right now, we only know a handful of perks from the game, but you actually don't need to know the entire perk list for what I'm going to talk about in this video. Now we are going to look at the Fallout 4 perk chart as a comparison because pretty much every perk except for like one or two is a returning perk that we've seen in the Fallout series already. Now obviously the perks you're going to take on in Fallout 76 all depend on what the build of your character is going to be. Are you going to be a guy doing like PvP and questing? Are you going to be a trader? Like, that will ultimately decide which perks you're taking on, but this is kind of generic, basic information that will help you regardless of what character build you're doing. For starters, I would focus on one type of weapon. Do you want to use automatic rifles? Do you want to use semi-automatic rifles? Do you want to use pistols, explosives, fire weapons, melee, unarmed, whatever? Like, choose one type of weapon. And the reason why I say that is we don't know how many active perks we can have at one time. It might be a low amount. I don't know if it will be, but it could be as low as like 10. It could be 15, 20, 30 active perks. We don't exactly know. So once you decide which weapon you want to use, I would go after the perks that support that weapon. For example, right here we have Commando from Fallout 4, which increases your damage with automatic weapons. In each subsequent level, it increases the damage more and gives you some other kind of effect. Now, I'm assuming there would be some similar perk to this in Fallout 76 for each kind of weapon type, and we don't know if you're going to get those other added effects that this gives us in Fallout 4, because that is a single-player game. But regardless, take on the perk that increases the damage of the weapon that you're going to stick with. Now, in Fallout 76, we have seen the perk Makeshift Warrior, which makes your melee weapons less likely to break and easier to repair. I would take something like this as well, but it all kind of depends on how important repair is in the game. Like, how often are we going to be repairing stuff? And if it ends up being something that comes up pretty often, then this wouldn't hurt depending on which weapons you want to use. Next up, we have the First Aid perk, which makes your stim packs heal you more. This is absolutely one you take and absolutely one you max. Stim packs are your main source of restoring your health. You've played the Fallout series, you already know this. Now, obviously, there are other ways to restore your health. You can cook food in this game, and you can apparently make food that will, like, overstuff you and give you health bonuses and things like that. But clearly, stim packs are the best way to go, so definitely take this one. Now, I'm assuming there would be an equivalent to this for Radaway in Fallout 76. In Fallout 4, the medic perk did both stim packs and Radaway. Obviously, radiation is a big part of the Fallout series, so if there's whatever the perk would be that makes your Radaway stronger. So I considered taking that, and we know like the final in-game stuff with the nukes and nuking locations are going to be super irradiated. So it'd be nice to be able to get rid of massive amounts of radiation really quickly. Now, in the same vein of picking which type of weapon you want to use, you want to pick the perk that's going to allow you to access the mods for that type of weapon. So for example, right here we have Gunnet, which allows you to access the mods for the regular gun weapons. And the thing is about these kinds of perks, you need at least the first rank to even be able to mod that type of weapon at all, so you absolutely need these, assuming they still work the same in Fallout 76. Now obviously the weapon types that you choose to use is entirely subjective, but for me Gunnet is like the best one, because that covers like so many different weapons. You can mod some of the heavy weapons with this, you can mod like shotguns, submachine guns, and assault rifles. And in the same realm, you want to take the armor perk, or whatever the equivalent would be in Fallout 76, and this is assuming we only have one perk for armor. There might be different kinds of armors. There might be light, medium, and heavy armors. I don't know if there will be, but there might be. But this will allow you to make your armor as strong as it possibly can be, and this could be the difference between life and death. And you should be wanting to craft in this game. You should be wanting to mod your weapons and mod your armors. That's how you get the best uses out of those things. And next up we have Toughness, which reduces essentially the physical kind of damage that you can take. Now there are perks that reduce energy damage, radiation damage, explosive damage, fire damage, things like that. You can take pretty much all of those if you want to. You can pretty much never go wrong with reducing damage from any source at all, but I'm just using Toughness as an example. Now from what we've seen so far, it looks like we can have upwards of at least 50 perks or so, but we don't know, again, how many we can have active at one time. So taking on Toughness and maybe Refractor or whatever would reduce energy damage wouldn't be a bad idea, just so you cover a lot of ground with the damage you're going to be taking. And somewhat similar, we have the Lifegiver perk, which literally just increases your health, your maximum health. Now this one isn't one I take a lot in my Fallout games, but this is a different kind of game. We have PvP and actual big enemies that look like boss fights, so your stats are very important, and that little bit of extra health might help you in some of those fights. Next, I want to take a look at the Lone Wonder perk that we know is actually going to be in the game. Now, this will also depend on whether or not you're playing solo or in a group of friends. If you are playing by yourself, obviously Lone Wonder is going to be a pretty strong perk for you, but I'm assuming there would be some sort of equivalent for that in Fallout 76 if you are in a group of players. Maybe if you're in a party, you and your companion have like a health bonus or a defense bonus or something like that. Now, in Fallout 4, the Inspirational perk is actually what made your companion stronger, but in this game, it actually does something completely different. In this game, when you're in a party, the Inspirational perk just makes you and your teammates gain more experience. And I actually want to talk about this a little bit because when we talk about the perks that we've seen so far for Fallout 76, I kind of hated on this perk but it's really not that bad. Like, if you and your friends are out there questing, if your only goal is to quest and gain levels, this might not be a bad one-off to get. Now that we know that you can take on a lot of perks, there's just so many you can have active, this isn't a bad one thing to grab just for whenever you're trying to gain levels. Next up, we have Action Boy or Action Girl, whatever you want to call it, Action Trans, Action Attack Helicopter. Whatever will allow you to have more AP points is a good thing. Now, in Fallout 4, it increased your action points regeneration. In older Fallout games, this kind of gave you more overall action points. Whatever it would do in Fallout 76, this is never bad. Even if you don't really use VATS, you're going to be sprinting around the world. And if you want to get out of a dangerous situation, you want to run away from there, you need more action points in order to actually be able to sprint further. So this is always a good one. It's a very basic one, but you can never go wrong with more action points. Next up, we have Bloody Mess. Now, a lot of people take this for the meme. It's funny to see an enemy explode whenever you kill them, but I'm actually suggesting this because this perk actually increases your overall damage from any source, and that's always going to be a good thing. It doesn't matter which kind of weapon you are using, you put out a % more damage, and that's always going to be a good thing. And again, this game is going to have PvP in it, whether you want to play that or not, and whenever you come into a situation where you're fighting it out with another player, that little bit of extra damage might be what saves your life. And next up, we have Steady Aim. Now, this might be more of a personal choice, but coming from somebody that plays a lot of first-person shooter multiplayer games, you really got to be good at hip fire. More specifically in Call of Duty, that's the main one I play. You got to be able to like turn a corner. If there's a guy already there, you don't have enough time to aim down sights to shoot them because you might already be getting shot at. You got to be able to pull the trigger really quick and do it accurately, and Steady Aim helps with that. Next, we have the Hacker perk, and whatever the lockpicking equivalent will be. Does anybody play the Fallout games where you're not making use of the hacking and lockpicking? Like, if you go through your game and you don't increase your hacking skill and your lockpicking skill, you're missing out on so much. There's so many items and things that you can't access unless you can hack a terminal or pick a lock. Like, I don't know anybody that doesn't play without these. When I play an RPG game like Fallout, I want to be able to do everything. That's why I mess with the crafting. That's why I mess with a little bit of survival stuff. That's why I mess with the hacking and the lockpicking. Especially when you're playing Fallout 76 for the first time, you don't want to miss out on anything. You want to be able to do everything that you can, especially for your first playthrough or first character, whatever you want to say. And that's really it for what I can recommend based on what we know is in Fallout 76 and looking at the Fallout 4 perk chart. Like, there's really nothing else that I feel is necessary. Past this, it comes down to what your character build is going to be and what you're role-playing as. If you're going to be a trader, well then yeah, you probably want to take on some perks that let you buy things for cheaper, sell things for more, things that will allow you to get better resources for crafting, because if you're a trader, you're probably going to be crafting and maybe even cooking as well. So if there's cooking-based perks, you probably want to take those as well. Survival is forced this time around, depending on how strong it is, like how much you have to eat, how much you have to drink, and if maybe even sleep is a thing. Like, okay, then maybe I need to take something, maybe take a perk that allows water to hydrate me better, or food like fills me more, or something like that. Like, it'll really depend on how intense the survival mechanics in this game really are. And according to Todd Howard, it's really softcore survival, so that may not matter at all, really.
And people wonder, is this hardcore survival? I like to think of it maybe it's more softcore survival.
On top of that, some of the perks that I mentioned might be a lot weaker in Fallout 76. So, for example, Commando might be only 1% of the time that increases your automatic weapons. Well, in that case, I probably wouldn't use it. And also, there's going to be probably a decent amount of new perks that we haven't seen in the Fallout series, and they may be really strong. Ultimately, it'll come down to, obviously, your character build, what you're trying to do with your character, and then on top of that, it'll be how many perks can we actually have active at one time? Because if, say, for whatever reason, it's a low amount, well then some perks are going to take priority over others. And if that happened to be the case, I'd still stick with a lot of the perks that I mentioned, but ultimately you can do whatever the hell you want with your character. Whatever you want to do with Fallout 76, feel the need to do that. But this, I believe, will help you when it comes to pretty much everything, because even if you're not doing PvP, like, you're going to want to do more damage. You're going to have to quest and things to level up, and you're going to want to be able to take less damage, and you're going to be able to mod and craft your armors and weapons and things like that. Like, these will help you regardless of what your character build is going to be. And hell, for some reason I almost forgot, we can share perks amongst our squad, and depending on what we can actually share amongst each other and whether or not perks stack, like, that'll also affect which perks you should be taking. Because if, say, somebody in my party already has like the hacker perk and the lockpicking perks, and they can share that with me, and I don't need that, then why would I ever use that? Because I can just use it when they're in my party. Now, at the beginning of the video, I mentioned that you should pick one weapon, but if we can have a good amount of perks active at one time, then I'd invest in a second weapon. But assuming that we stick with one weapon type, what would you choose? If you have to pick one weapon type in the Fallout series, what would you stick with? Energy weapons, regular guns, pistols, heavy weapons, melee, unarmed, whatever. What would you choose? Me personally, pretty much throughout all the Fallout games, I've always stuck with just like regular ballistic guns, like rifles, submachine guns, sometimes pistols at the beginning of the game, and of course shotguns. That's like my go-to weapon with pretty much any shooter game I play. Anyways, as usual, guys, let me know your thoughts below. And again, what is your preferred go-to weapon type in the Fallout series? And if you went on to enjoy the video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Turn on notifications. Follow me on Twitter at @TheDashingDavid. Links to my social networks are in the description and in the outro. Later, guys.
Give me forever for a while, give me forever for a while. Quit